Welcome everyone to Unspoken Podcast. I am Anna Paz, and today we have the very first episode of 2026. I had to take some time out to really ground myself for the beginning of this year, but I give thanks to all of you that have been listening into this podcast, especially in the last year. I give so much gratitude because it keeps me going. It allows me to really see the value and worth in the work that I'm doing. And if you haven't already, just so that we can push this platform further to wider audiences, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Substack or on our Instagram. And you can also give a little review on Spotify if you haven't already. But without further ado, today's guest is Contra Mestra Nadia Almeida. Nadia is a Capoeira Angola teacher, cultural facilitator at the Capoeira Angola School Dendê de Maré, founded by Mestre Pezão. In her role as Contra Mestra, she is deeply committed to preserving and teaching the traditions and values of Capoeira Angola, while also affirming it as a living practice, one that serves as a tool for anti-racist work and community development. Based in Lisbon and shaped by her years in London, Nadia's relationship to Capoeira extends far beyond the physical. She embraces it as a cultural, social, and educational force, and through her work, she has supported children, adults in communities in the periphery of Lisbon and contributed to projects in the Gambia, using Capoeira to nurture identity, belonging, and meaningful cultural dialogue, particularly with the African diaspora. Have a listen. So welcome, Nadia, to Unspoken Podcast.
Welcome. Thank you for the invitation, Anna Paz.
No worries. So first, actually, I want to ask you, how are you feeling?
How am I feeling? I'm feeling really good.
Yeah?
Yes, really nice.
You just had an event now, Nas Mares de Odoya.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit of how that went for you, the event, how you're feeling about it.
It's always a really nice time for me, this event, because as you know, it's called Nas Mares de Odoya, right? So it's honoring the goddess of the waters and all that she represents. And by doing so, every year I connect more. And by connecting more, I also feel a bit of the incorporation of all that she represents. And then at the end, throughout the event, you also feel all these energies coming. And at the end of the event, they stay with us. And it's like a moment to stop, to say thank you, to maintain a ritual that every year is feeding me and feeding everyone who comes, and gives me the power to just carry on, because every year I thank Yemanja for everything that I'm doing, and it just keeps coming back. So it's really nice. After really tired, I am really tired, because it does take a lot of energy to make these things happen, even though I'm not doing this on my own, of course, but it does, you need to extend yourself a lot before, during, and now after, you're like, the job is done, everything went well, and the peace also is here. That peace that's fulfilling, that actually is in a good moment. Is like, we are in February, but it's still the starting of the year, so it's my nurturing moment as well. So I'm starting. Yes.
Thank you so much. And I want to say thank you for all the work that you put into this event. And not just the event, but I think for me, you are definitely someone that is like a reference inside Capoeira Angola, but also outside, with the energy that you put into the things that you do, but also the care, the love, the attention, and all of that you do. Yeah, I'm sure returns back in some way, but it is felt by the community. At least for me, I feel it and I really appreciate it. For those who don't know who you are, where you began your story,
Can you speak a little bit about you, your beginnings, where you were born, your parents, your lineage?
Yes. So I am, as you know, I was born in Lisbon, 1984. I grew up in the suburbs, Santo António dos Cavaleiros. My mom, my father are both immigrants who came to Portugal. And my mom is from Angola, my father from Guinea-Bissau. I grew up in a very nice place, I would say, you know. So always my upbringing was, I was this child always in the streets playing football, playing with my friends, picking up fruit in the trees. And we grew up amongst a lot of friendship, you know, a lot of support, let's say. Also, with a lot of responsibility. I grew up also, I'm the oldest one. I have a sister. So my grow up was quite always responsible, you know, always looking after of my sister. Always that, actually that's why I think I'm a caring person, or I like to think I'm a caring person. So my upbringing was good. I can say I really have, I had a really good childhood, you know, in terms of I had what I needed, you know, within what my parents could give me. I also was able to break some barriers, right, by achieving education. So this was something that my parents always tried to give me, you know, so I'm really thankful for that. And as I grow up, you know, I grew up in the middle of people from Angola, people from Cape Verde, Guinea, Portuguese. It's a very diverse neighborhood as well, but also at the peripheric area, right? So as I was studying in the college, I was still inside of Santo António dos Cavaleiros, which is my neighborhood. And then, of course, when I finally was able to reach higher education, when I went to university, that's when you start to come out from the neighborhood, and you start to go to Lisbon, and you start to get your education, but at the same time, starting to understand many other layers of your life as well. So yes, so my upbringing was amazing. I really have good memories. Yeah, that's it. I was a happy child. I played football, always around sports as well. Always had also this passion within of the artistic side. You know, I always actually wanted to do things like theater, things like dance. So something that was always here since I was a child. And then when I went to university, I ended up by doing something different, but always with this, you know. At some point, I have to try an art form, let's say. Yeah, so I'm happy I was lucky to have an internship as well when I finished my degree, who allowed me to travel to UK. And then in UK, I went to do the internship for 6 months. And I ended up by staying 15 years, exactly. And then there, in London, even though I finished my university, my English was not the best still. I went to work in hospitality, you know, practice my English, things like that. I actually was managed to find good jobs, develop a lot of opportunities came from there. At some point, my English is better. That's when I started to then actually work in my area. And then life just carried on professionally really good until now. So I always strived, really had to work hard. So always a very hard worker so far, always having to work. I actually, since maybe my first job was maybe 14, 15 years old. So job always was my company, let's say, because, you know, you want to be independent as well, and not is like I have food at home, but when you want your own things, right? You have to start then getting your way. So always from an early stage started to do little jobs. So in London, I really developed a lot there, and achieved always what I aimed for, you know. So yes, so I'm very satisfied professionally too, in that sense.
And how do you compare then your experience of being in London to being in Lisbon? Like, what did London bring for you?
So I say I have now I'm on my third life. I still have few more to come. I say my first life is the life that where I was born in Lisbon. So I had my first life until I was 23, 24 years old, which was growing up, going to the primary school, high school, university, and living like when I was 23, 24 to London. And then when I'm 23, 24 and I go to London, I start my second life, right? So this was my second life. So I say I become a woman in the UK. It was very transformative coming up from the cultural environment where I was and going into London, where you have a bigger presence of the diaspora, I was like, and especially when I started to work in hospitality when I came to London, a lot of my colleagues, Jamaican, from Ghana, Senegal, or even in other countries like Asians, or the whole world is in London, really, right? And then one of the things that I straight away realized the difference is how everybody could have good jobs. Regardless of skin, how I would go. I remember like going to the bank and seeing like a dread, like a Rasta man serving me at the counter. It was like amazing, So the first perspective, you start to realize that your own people outside of where you live, they have way more than we have when we compare to Portugal, let's say, Lisbon. So one of the transformations firstly was that empowerment.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, because I also feel that growing up in London, because of seeing certain people in certain places, in positions, whether it's work-wise or education or whatever it may be, just to have that visibility, it does something to you. And I was going to say that, like, how did that then change you in the way that you positioned yourself or related to your blackness, maybe?
The thing is, for example, in terms of work and opportunities, I felt that actually the opportunities are there for everyone. In a way, that's when I saw a structure, a system structure, regardless of the issues that they have. There's a system that works better and looks for everybody, or at least if one of the things that I always learned there, if you really want to achieve something, the door is open as long as you go after, because the assets that they give you to training, courses, opportunities to improve and upscale your career are there every day. And they are there for everybody, regardless of color. That's why you can see in positions of power more black people, for example. So it was not positioning, it's understanding it was there. And as long as I want it, it's there for me. And if I want to progress, it's still there for me. I'm not stagnated with crumbles, let's say. Yes.
So then I guess what you're saying, if you compare it to Lisbon doesn't have, or didn't, I don't know now, because I never actually really lived here, the same kind of opportunities then, what you're saying?
Of course. Actually, I would never if I never have moved to London, for example, I would be in Portugal and I would never probably have Rastas, because by then, who's going to employ people with dreads, for example? You don't see that. Even here, even today, is still a bit like that, So it's a big difference that you can be yourself regardless, as long as you have your potential and you have your capabilities to show. There you have, and here is way different. Yes, way different. So when you compare Lisbon to London, the mentality is quite different in those senses.
But then I'm wondering, is there anything, just to turn it back on his head, is there anything that is good about Lisbon that is a little bit not visible in London? Not just the weather, Not just the weather, but maybe something culturally or about who you are or your heritage that is more present here that maybe it is there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Is the story, right? So, Portugal is a country with a colonial story with Angola, which is where my mom comes from, with Cape Verde, Guinea, which I all have heritage from all these three sources, for example. So, of course, in here, you are surrounded of people who are from the same backgrounds as you. I grow up with a lot of people who have the same scenario, you know. They are Afro-Portuguese, they grow up in Portugal, the mom is from Angola, Cape Verde, Guinea, and we all have a bit of same background story because of the story, the colonial story of Portugal. Whilst in London, you find the colonial story as well, but because the colonial story, we are talking about other countries related to England, which were more influenced, like Nigeria, like Ghana, correct? So that's why for me it was a big learning and very rich to go and find other black communities which are actually more developed in terms of, because they are in the UK, for example, which is a country that provides more structure, let's say, and you can see, I remember also, here in universities in my time, probably we were maybe 2-3 girls black in university. Whilst you go to UK, you see plenty people from Jamaica, plenty people from Nigeria, plenty people from Ghana already in the high studies, on second generation high studies. I am the first to accomplish the degree in my generation. Do you understand? And in there, the parents already, because of the story, they already had access to that, and the children are already growing in a different financial and different social society, let's say. Yes.
Well, then just to pivot a little bit to bring that context about, because when I met you, let's talk about Capoeira, because that's how we met. That day that we went to this audition, which if you've been hearing the other episodes, I speak a little bit loosely about what called me to Capoeira and this specific audition that we had. And that was actually the first time me being in London, growing up in London. I was in a room full of people that had a similar story to me, like this story, like you said, that ties all of us together because we come from this context of being from countries that were colonized by Portugal, right? And that did change something in me as well. It shifts something. It is something that I never really experienced living in London because of this, like you said. But let's talk about Capoeira then, and just like how Capoeira first came into your life.
Capoeira came to my life really, really as a coincidence. I met a friend that invited me to go to a Brazilian event, a social event in a community place. And then when I went there, I saw Capoeira Roda, and I was like, it was Capoeira Angola, what I saw. And I immediately resonated with me, immediately. And I remember in that roda, which I didn't play because it's the first time I'm singing, I was just outside looking at the roda, I started to sing already with the people. And then this was a Sunday, and then on the Tuesday I did my first class, and I never stopped until today. So that was my first encounter, was in East London, at the Passing Clouds. That was, I think, maybe 2012, 2013, around that. Yes.
So if you were to like specifically now, with reflection, with a few years now of doing Capoeira, what do you think was the main thing that really pulled you?
So it was this, funny enough, it's like I grew up in a house of African background. So I know where I'm from. I grew up knowing my roots. But when I came to Capoeira, it's another level of deepness that I encountered. you know. It was a level of freedom, resilience, understanding my story more into depth, in a sense, because I studied in Portugal, right? So even my own education, it was colonized, right? So you don't have access to the African history, let's say. And through Capoeira Angola, I started to open the eyes and perspectives about the African people, because I started to study, understanding the origins of capoeira, but also the people who brought capoeira, you know, so being in the African continent as well. That empowerment that the capoeira gave to the people, I gave more value to my African side as well, so it empowered me by finding my roots more deeply, understanding that we come from a very wealthy and smart country full of queens and kings and warriors and doctors and spiritual healers, you know, that we actually draw the world in a sense. And once you live in a colonized country, they don't want you to have that perspective, right? But capoeira, if you embrace capoeira, when you start studying beyond the movement, then you, and especially if you are Afro-descendant, particularly even if you are Afro-descendant, it's a transformation tool. I transformed myself. Even ways of dressing, my hair, everything changed. So embracing my blackness, that's what capoeira did for me. Embrace more my blackness into more depth, you see, rather than just, okay, I know I have my heritage, but more deeper than that. Become that, you understand? To become that, as you say, to embody that in your life, because actually you start to understand, you start to survive in a more smart way. Capoeira gives you that tool. Tools to survive in this society which is unequal and racist.
But that's what you just said about having these tools then that doesn't only transform you, allows you to become who you are, yes. But then you also are able to extend that to other people. Yeah. So I want you maybe just to explore a little bit like what brought you back to Lisbon and how you then started to work also with the projects that you do here.
As I understood the empowerment that capoeira was giving to me, you know, growing up in my neighborhood in Santo Antonio, as I said, I had a really nice upbringing in terms of, I was surrounded of friends, family, community, but I also know that I didn't have all the access to things. Like I said, there's so many things that we young children maybe want to do, art forms, sports, things that you might not have the access to it. Once I saw the social work capabilities and the transformation that capoeira brings to people, immediately I thought in my origins, where I'm coming from, Santo Antonio de Cavaleiros. So when I came to Lisbon, when I traveled back to move, I always had this mind, I have to bring capoeira into my neighborhood. I grow up there, I understand what are the needs and the change that it makes to me. I would like to at least give opportunity to people, if I can, to also have a chance as well. And it's also understanding that I had some advantages, me myself, I had advantages that allow me to go to university, to earn a scholarship, to go to live in England, and be independent and free. So I also feel a responsibility to come back to my origins, which those are the ones who made me today, and give back. Understanding the power that capoeira can bring to these children, teenagers or adults. So opening perspectives, because that's what it did to me, it opened perspectives. I think one of the things when I'm coming back to Portugal is to give back and to empower, especially Afro diasporic communities.
And what do you think is like important things to, in your opinion, to reclaim or learn, or things that have been lost for African descendants? So like, what is some of the things that you think? So for me, for instance, I feel like sometimes what's been demonized within our cultures is our acknowledgement of our ancestors. Something that has really been lost, us understanding those who have come before us, and actually having a relationship with that aspect of us, right? So I guess that extends to, our spirituality, the way that we relate to our spirituality, and how that has been demonized through colonization. So for me, I feel like that's something that we have to reclaim and relearn how to have that relationship. But is there like a thing for you that you're like, this is super important, that this is reclaimed for Afro-descendants?
Yeah, is this feeling of belonging? Is the belonging, because everybody knows this expression, preto vai para a tua terra, here in Portugal, black go back to your land. Everybody knows. Any black person here knows or has heard at some point, right? And one of the things that I see in England, for example, is that this has inspired me as well, and that there's a lot of communities, there's a lot of community centers which they give the space for the black communities to do their own projects, Afro-centered, rooted in the values that these communities have themselves, right? So when I look, what is important is community belongingness together, because when the children understand that they belong, they are in Portugal, but they belong to a greater culture than that, right? Embracing that her mother or her father come from different origins, and embracing that heritage, and not being ashamed of being who they are, because there's a greatness there. It's just how people are framed here, colonized, right? So I think it's about breaking that gap, you see, because in one way, that's exactly what it did for me. Is any children that goes to school here in Portugal will never ever learn about African story. Will never. I had to wait until I'm almost an adult to be able to buy my books and learn by myself. So, do you understand? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm reading this, I'm 28 years old, what the hell? You understand? So, it's about bringing that knowledge at the earliest stage in our lives. Because if we have this knowledge at the earliest stage of our lives, we will become way more balanced, empowered, and be able to fight equal rights earlier as well, because you're already growing up with that mindset, rather than when you are an adult, you are dealing with questions, and then you have to go find information and go to deep transformations, as this could be something that belongs to you since you are born to, because it's also a right that you have. Because imagine, you are in a country, for example, you go to this neighborhood, I'm specifically talking Sant António dos Cavaleiros, if you count the inhabitants, you will see the proportions, and you have a lot of African community there, but you don't have any measures, educations, activities to fit the particular needs of those different cultural backgrounds. Everything is done the same for everybody. That is not how it should be, because I think even the Portuguese people have to learn about our culture. So if I'm going to school and I'm learning your culture, why you are not learning mine? And this is already racism. And that's where people start to think that one knowledge is more important than the other one. And that's why then some people won't embrace their own culture, not because they don't want, because they didn't have even a chance, because they are born in Portugal still, you see? Is a reality that we here have. Makes sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think this is quite important for me, is to really bring education which is related to the background of these children. But also this education is for all. I say for the back children, but for all. Because it needs to be both ways. I learn yours, but you have to learn mine. No. Because otherwise, how are we going to have balance?
How are you going to have equality?
How are we going to have equality?
No,
exactly. You know, why you don't have African dances in schools? It's amazing. It's one of the best things. Why you don't have, but you probably will have ballet. Right?
Yeah, no, but that really speaks to like what people value
exactly
in our society when we don't really position these things as being on the same level.
Exactly.
Especially if the people are there, they're present in your country.
And on that note, everything that I did is voluntary because there's no resources.
I was just gonna say to you, like, what has your work with Capoeira Angola, or just even in practicing Capoeira Angola, what has it taught you about resilience? Because I know that, like you said, you do what you do, coming from the heart.
Yeah.
And you're a strong activist. You have a very anti-racist approach to what it is that you do, and that is the basis of like what is pulling you. But tell me, what are some of the challenges then?
Well, there's a lot of challenges, you know. For example, financial challenges in a sense that, you know, a lot of the things that I do with those children, there's no, because Capoeira Angola, in a way, if you want to work with Capoeira Angola, it's not the same as, it's not seen as the same as you, okay, I have a karate club, or I have after school activities, or you are under an umbrella registered or whatsoever. So the resources for you to have, you need to have a company, association, registration, apply for funds, and all these things that actually you need to have time, structure, time to do so. And even if you do so, the doors that you have, I'd say, to have some finance support are really little. You know, there's no funding for these things. And if you ask people also, you know, they give what they can. So in the end of the day, if you don't have a degree in, for example, sports, and you have the proper certification to do so, then the doors can open for you. But if you're doing a social work with capoeira, then you don't have many options. But also you're not going to transform capoeira in a company, right? Because otherwise you are changing what is supposed to be done. So you also have this balance. I'm not going to change what I do into an institution, just because if I become an institution and I think about the money, doors will open. Then this is not Capoeira Angola for me anymore, right? So stick to what you have. Everything will come. So yes, it's hard, that side. I do it with really little resources, but also this is the financial side. But also when you are liaising in the community, speaking about this, you know, is the people also have to be more, particularly in Portugal, more, can I say this in a polite way, more educated racially, you see, because there's no point for you to, well, you are a capoeirista, you strive for resistance, let's say, but if you are racial educated, you become an oppressor. You know, so these are challenges I face in capoeira. You know, people around capoeira society, in the society, as I said, the society has these issues. People from the society are also part of capoeira. So challenges with being, having to position myself constantly by being a woman as well, you know. So I always go after what I want, but for me to have what I want, a lot of the times I have to shout, because otherwise I'm not going to be heard. Yeah. But then you shout, oh, she's a crazy person. Yeah, but I had to shout until you listen to me, because sometimes they don't open the door to you. You have to smash it and just take your way in. It's true. Because in the end of the day, it's not your fault that people are not racially educated. You see? And in capoeira, if you are working with capoeira, you have to have a notion that you need to study some things, because if you don't study, you are repeating the system that is oppressing us, right? Within the fight against oppression. Yeah, so I would say those are more the challenges. You know, of course, is dealing with the uneducation of people. I had to go and educate myself, but I don't have to educate more people, and I don't have the responsibility of educate others. People have to go search for information, read about what's going on in the world, read about African story, read about the African reality, the Afro diaspora reality, Black people reality day to day, you know, understanding the spaces where we are, where we go.
I think even us, if we have had to educate ourselves, then those who might call themselves allies, those who are not part of the Black community, imagine what work they also have to do, right, to become conscious of certain things. So I think it's naive for us to think, any one of us, to think that we don't have work, study to do.
Totally.
So I really agree with you on that note. But Nadia, do you have any one last thing that you would like to say?
To thank you, you know, for the invitation. I think it's very important to give voice, you see, to give voice, and especially to give voice to different perspectives. You know, I think it's important for people who are at home listening to these conversations, because in the end of the day, I have my reality, right? I have my background, my ancestrality. I have a reality I live every day, which might not be exactly the same reality that the person that is listening now is having. So it's good to understand perspectives, you see, and I think it's important that people can really understand the importance of we Black people to study about ourselves for our own empowerment, but also to gain tools, because it just gives us tools to tackle every day and re-educate at the same time, right? And for people who are not African or Afro-descendant, it's important that they study too, so they don't carry on perpetuating an oppression system. So it's work for everybody, you know, it's work for everybody, and everybody has to take their own share of dedication in one side of their freedom, and the other side to give space and to respect, you know, to respect.
No, but I appreciate you, and I really mean that. Like I said, when I saw you the first time I met you, you were the only capoeirista that was there at the audition with your birimbau, giving a lot of energy. And that's what I see from you. You know, you have you're a powerhouse, but you also have a lot of care and a lot of love. And I see that as, for me, a reference, not just in Capoeira Angola, but in life, you know.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, Nadia, for being here.
And you inspire me, so thank you so much. And I really love you for that. And I am getting shy now. But I really admire you too, you know. And I think that the relation that we have, it's a relation that Black women have to make it happen, you know. Make it happen. One has to empower the other one, you know. Once we have to empower the other one, because as we know, and I said to you many times, we are at the bottom. So if we don't stick together, how's it gonna be? So union, and I say this across, you know, is this union, this empowerment, this belief, this power, you know, that by you doing what you do, which inspires me, why what I do inspires you, and this togetherness to, you know, I see you, and we are together in this journey. I love it. So I think it's very important women can be together like that. Yeah.
Well, you can't do nothing alone. You can never do anything alone. But thank you so much. Thank you for everyone listening. This has been a really special episode. We're actually recording in Lisbon. So this has been after Nadia's event with Mestre Pezão as well, which was 3 days of really a lot of capoeira. My body is hurting.
I'm so tired.
Yeah, but it's so important to come together, really engage with the aspect of coming and being a community and giving each other, more strength in the things that we're doing, in the journeys that we're walking on. So thank you everyone for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.